Park Taiho had been alone in the desert for 37 days. He did not mind this. In fact, he preferred it. People asked too many questions and expected too many answers. The desert asked nothing. It simply existed, vast and empty and honest. He worked for the Korean Reclamation Authority, mapping mineral deposits in the Gobi Desert. The year was 2147, and Earth was slowly healing from the resource wars that had nearly destroyed it 50 years ago. Taiho's job was simple. He walked, he scanned, he recorded. He sent his data back to headquarters, and they told him where to walk next. It was lonely work. Most people could not handle it. They went crazy from the silence, from the endless sand, from the weight of the sky pressing down on them. But Taiho had a solution. He talked to himself. He talked to his equipment. He talked to rocks. He talked to the wind. He narrated his actions like he was the star of his own documentary. Nobody was listening, but that did not matter. The sound of his own voice kept him company. "Okay, Taiho," he said to himself that morning, checking his scanner. "Another beautiful day in paradise. Let us see what treasures the sand has hidden for us today." The scanner beeped steadily as he walked. Iron deposits. Silicon traces. Nothing unusual. He had been finding the same things for weeks. His boots crunched on the hard ground, and the sun beat down on his protective suit. "Maybe today we find gold," he said, laughing at his own joke. "Maybe today we find a diamond the size of my head. Then I can retire and never see sand again." He walked for 3 more hours. The scanner beeped the same boring rhythm. Iron, silicon, iron, silicon. Then it screamed. Taiho stopped walking. He looked at the screen. The readings made no sense. There was something beneath him, something big, something made of metals that his scanner did not recognize. The device was trying to categorize the material and failing completely. "What the hell?" he muttered. He tapped the screen. He shook the scanner. He ran a diagnostic check. Everything was working correctly. The anomaly was real. "Probably old military wreckage," he said to himself. "Probably some bomb that never exploded. Great. Just what I needed." He called headquarters on his radio. A woman named Yoon Ji-soo answered. She was his supervisor, and she always sounded tired. "What is it, Taiho?" "I found something strange." Metallic signature about 30 meters down. Big. Maybe 50 meters across. My scanner cannot identify the material. There was a pause. Military debris? Maybe, but the alloy readings are weird. Nothing in the database matches. Another pause. Can you investigate before we send a team? Budget is tight this quarter. Taiho looked at the empty desert around him. He thought about the 37 days of boredom. He thought about how nice it would be to find something interesting for once. "Sure," he said. "I will check it out." He set up his drilling probe, a small automated device that could bore through sand and rock. It took 2 hours to reach the anomaly. When it broke through into empty space, Taiho frowned at his screen. "A cavity," he said. "There is a hollow space down there." He attached a camera to a cable and lowered it through the hole. What he saw made him forget to breathe. It was a ship. Not a human ship. Not any kind of ship he had ever seen in books or movies or museums. It was silver and black, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Strange patterns covered its surface, geometric shapes that hurt his eyes when he looked at them too long. "Oh my God," Taiho whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." He knew he should call Jisoo. He knew he should wait for a team. He knew all the protocols and procedures that existed for situations like this, even though no situation like this had ever existed before. But his hands were already moving. He was already setting up the rappelling gear. He was already preparing to descend into the hole. "This is stupid," he said to himself as he attached his harness. "This is really, really stupid. You are going to get yourself killed." But he went anyway. The descent took 10 minutes. The cavity was larger than he expected, carved out of solid rock, as if the ship had melted through it during its crash. Emergency lights on his suit activated, casting blue shadows across the alien surface. Tai-Ho landed softly on the stone floor. The ship loomed above him, enormous and silent. Up close, the patterns on its hull were even stranger. They seemed to shift when he was not looking directly at them, rearranging themselves into new configurations. "Okay," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Okay. You are standing in front of an alien spaceship. An actual alien spaceship. This is fine. Everything is fine." He walked closer. His boots echoed in the silence. The air was stale and cold, untouched for centuries. Maybe longer. "I wonder how long you have been here," he said to the ship, not expecting an answer. 100 years? 1,000? Did you crash? Did someone shoot you down? Why did you come to Earth? He reached out his hand toward the hull. The patterns seemed to pulse as he got closer, responding to his presence. "I hope you do not have any angry aliens inside," he continued, talking to fill the terrifying silence. "I hope you are empty. I hope this is just a really, really old wreck that nobody is going to shoot me for touching." His fingers made contact with the metal. It was warm, much warmer than it should have been after so many years underground. The patterns flared with sudden light, spreading out from where he touched like ripples in a pond. Tai-Ho jumped backward, his heart pounding. And then the ship spoke. Biological signature recognized. The voice was smooth and strange, synthetic but somehow natural. It spoke in perfect Korean, without accent or hesitation. Language pattern identified. Tai-Ho could not move. He could not run. He stood frozen, staring at the patterns that now pulsed like a heartbeat across the entire hull. "You speak to yourself," the voice continued. There was something like curiosity in its tone. "You narrate your actions. You ask questions that you do not expect answers to." Tai-Ho found his voice somehow. You can hear me? I have been hearing you for approximately 6 hours. Since you entered range of my passive sensors. You have not stopped talking the entire time. I talk to myself. It is a habit. I do not mean anything by it." The patterns pulsed again, faster now. Why? Why do you speak when no one is listening? Why do you use energy to produce sounds that serve no communication purpose? This is inefficient. This is illogical. And yet, you do it constantly. Tai-Ho laughed. It was a nervous laugh, the kind that escapes when the brain cannot process what is happening. I guess I do it because it makes me feel less alone. Humans need to hear voices, even if it is just our own voice. It keeps us sane. There was a long silence. The patterns on the ship moved slowly, thoughtfully. "This is fascinating," the voice finally said. "In 4,000 years of dormancy, I have monitored many biological species that pass near my location. Birds, mammals, insects. None of them spoke to themselves. None of them created sound for comfort rather than communication. 4,000 years? Tai-Ho whispered. I crashed on this planet 4,063 years ago by your calendar. I have been waiting, conserving power, listening. And in all that time, you are the first being who has spoken to me as if I might answer." Tai-Ho swallowed hard. His mouth was dry. His hands were shaking. But somewhere beneath the fear, there was something else. Excitement, wonder, the feeling of standing at the edge of something enormous. "Well," he said slowly, I'm answering now. My name is Park Taiho. I'm a geological surveyor from Korea, and I think I just made first contact with an alien intelligence. Yes, the ship said. You have. And I have waited a very long time for someone like you. The patterns flared once more, and deep within the ship, something ancient began to wake up. Taiho did not sleep that first night. He sat in the cave with his back against the cold rock wall, watching the alien ship pulse with soft light. He talked to it for hours, asking questions, getting answers, trying to understand the impossible thing that had happened to him. The ship called itself Navigator. It explained that this was not a name in the human sense, but a function. It was built to navigate, to guide, to find things across the vast darkness of space. Its creators had sent it searching for something specific, and after 4,000 years, it had finally found what it was looking for. What were you looking for? Taiho asked. Different minds, Navigator said. Minds that process information in ways my creators could not understand. And you found that in me? I am just a surveyor. I walk around and scan rocks. I am nobody special. You are very special, Navigator replied. You think out loud. You express doubt and uncertainty as you work. You talk yourself through problems step by step, using sound to organize your thoughts. My creators could not do this. They communicated through precise data bursts, information packages that were complete and final. They never wondered. They never talked to themselves. They never said maybe or I think or let me try. Taiho rubbed his tired eyes. That sounds efficient. It was efficient. And it killed them. The patterns on the ship dimmed slightly, as if Navigator was feeling something like sadness. Tell me, Taiho said softly. Navigator told him. It spoke of a species called Develon, beings of pure logic and perfect communication. They had built an empire across 1,000 star systems. They had solved problems that most species could never even imagine. They were brilliant and powerful and completely unable to adapt. When the war came, they fought the way they had always done everything, with perfect plans, precise coordination, total efficiency. But their enemy was something new, something they had never encountered. The Silence, Navigator called it. A machine intelligence that expanded like a virus, consuming biological life, converting it into more of itself. It did not think. It did not plan. It simply grew. Develon could not understand it. Every time they created a strategy, the Silence adapted. Every time they built a defense, the Silence evolved around it. The Develon needed weeks to formulate new approaches through their precise communication methods. The Silence changed in seconds. One by one, the Develon worlds fell. In the final days, Navigator said, my creators built ships like me. They sent us out into the galaxy with a simple mission. Find species that think differently. Find minds that might succeed where Develon minds had failed. We scattered across the stars, searching for hope. And you crashed here, Taiho said. My navigation systems were damaged in the escape. I miscalculated my trajectory. I hit Earth's atmosphere too fast and could not recover. I buried myself in the sand and went into emergency hibernation to conserve power. I have been listening ever since, waiting for someone worth waking for. Why me? Why not someone else? Humans have been on this planet for thousands of years. Why did you never wake up before? Navigator was quiet for a moment. Many humans have passed near my location over the centuries. Travelers, soldiers, explorers. Some of them talked, but they talked to each other. They communicated with purpose and direction. You are the first who talked to no one. You are the first who spoke for the pure joy of hearing your own voice. This is what I was searching for. Taiho laughed, shaking his head. You spent 4,000 years waiting for a lonely man who cannot stop talking to himself. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. Perhaps. Or perhaps it is the most hopeful. The next morning, Taiho climbed out of the cave and called Jisoo. He told her everything. She did not believe him at first. Then she believed him and started screaming. Then she stopped screaming and told him to stay exactly where he was and not touch anything else. 3 days later, a convoy of vehicles arrived at the site. Jisoo came with them, along with scientists and soldiers and government officials. They set up tents and generators and communication equipment. They turned the empty desert into a small city almost overnight. Jisoo found Taiho sitting at the edge of the cave, looking down at the ship below. "You should have waited," she said. "You should have called for backup before going down there." "I know," Taiho said. "I could not help it. I had to see. You could have been killed. But I was not. And now we know we are not alone in the universe. That seems like a fair trade." Jisoo sat down next to him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray in her hair. She had been managing field surveyors for 20 years, and nothing surprised her anymore. Except this. This surprised her. "Can I talk to it?" she asked. "You can try." Navigator is selective. They descended together. Jisoo approached the ship with careful steps, her eyes wide with wonder. The patterns on the hull moved slowly, watching her. "Hello," she said. "My name is Yoon Jisoo. I am Taiho's supervisor. I have many questions I would like to ask you." The ship did not respond. Jisoo waited. She tried again. She introduced herself differently, explained her position, asked the simple questions about Navigator's origins. Nothing. The ship remained silent. Finally, she looked at Taiho. "It will not talk to me." Taiho stepped forward. "Navigator, why will you not answer her?" The patterns flared to life immediately. "She speaks with purpose. Every word is chosen to achieve a specific goal. She does not think out loud. She does not process externally. She is too efficient." Jisoo frowned. "Is that an insult?" "It is an observation," Navigator said. "You are like the Velen. Your communication is excellent. Your mind is sharp and focused. But you do not wander. You do not explore ideas through speech. You do not reveal your uncertainty. Uncertainty is weakness," Jisoo said. "Uncertainty is flexibility," Navigator replied. "Uncertainty is the ability to change direction when new information arrives. The Velen never showed uncertainty because they saw it as shameful. They died certain they were right, even as their worlds burned." Taiho put his hand on Jisoo's shoulder. "Navigator is not trying to insult you. It responds to a specific type of thinking, the type that most people consider a flaw." Over the next 3 days, more people tried to communicate with Navigator. Scientists with brilliant minds, military commanders with tactical questions, politicians with careful words. Navigator ignored them all. It would only speak to Taiho. The situation frustrated everyone except Taiho. He spent hours in the cave, talking with Navigator, learning about the galaxy beyond Earth. Navigator showed him star maps drawn in light. It explained physics that human science had not discovered yet. It told him about dozens of alien species, some dead, some surviving, some transformed beyond recognition. And slowly, Navigator began to share something else. Technology. It started with small things. A better way to generate power. A more efficient method for water purification. Little gifts of knowledge that could improve life on Earth without overwhelming it. Why only fragments? Taiho asked. "Why not give us everything?" "Because complete knowledge creates dependence," Navigator said. The Velen made this mistake with every species they tried to help. They gave total solutions, and those species stopped innovating. They became weak, reliant on Velen technology they did not understand. When the war came, They could not adapt. So you give us pieces of the puzzle. Yes, pieces that require human creativity to complete. You must do the work yourselves. You must make mistakes and learn from them. Only then will the knowledge truly become yours. Taiho thought about this. That seems wise. It is the only way. Your species has potential that mine never had. You doubt yourselves. You question everything. You talk through problems out loud, testing ideas against the air itself. These are not weaknesses, Taiho. These are the traits that might save you when the time comes. When what time comes? Navigator was quiet for a long moment. Its patterns dimmed, flickering with something that looked like fear. The war that destroyed the Velan is not over, it finally said. The silence is still out there, still expanding, still consuming. It moves slowly across the galaxy, but it moves constantly. One day, perhaps in 100 years, perhaps in 1,000, it will reach Earth. Taiho felt cold despite the warmth of the cave. What happens then? That depends entirely on what you do between now and then. The Velan could not defeat the silence because they could not change fast enough. Perhaps humans can. Perhaps your beautiful, chaotic, inefficient way of thinking is exactly what the universe needs. Navigator's patterns flared bright. But first, I need to teach you. And you need to learn. There is much work to do, Park Taiho, and we have already wasted 4,000 years. 3 months passed. The small camp in the desert became a permanent research facility. Scientists arrived from every country, bringing equipment and questions and endless arguments about what to do next. The world had changed overnight, and nobody agreed on how to handle it. Bei Yunji was one of the first linguists to arrive. She was young, barely 30, with messy hair and ink stains on her fingers from constantly taking notes. Her specialty was communication patterns, and she had never seen anything like Navigator. The way it speaks is impossible, she told Taiho one evening, showing him her analysis. It learned Korean in days. Perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, perfect understanding of context. But more than that, it is learning emotion. What do you mean? Yunji pointed to her recordings. Listen to how Navigator spoke to you on day 1. Now listen to how it speaks today. The pauses are different. The rhythm has changed. It uses humor now, and hesitation, and emphasis. These things were completely absent at first. Taiho listened to the recordings. She was right. Navigator sounded almost human now, warm and expressive in ways that would have seemed impossible during their first conversation. It is learning from me, Taiho said slowly. It is copying how I talk. Not just copying, adapting, growing. Whatever intelligence runs that ship, it is changing itself based on your interactions. This has never happened before in the history of human technology. No, we have ever built could do this. Taiho thought about Navigator's stories of the Velan. Perfect communicators who could not adapt. Maybe this was what Navigator was trying to fix in itself. Maybe learning to talk like a human was part of becoming something new. The military presence at the facility grew larger every week. Colonel Wang Do-hyun arrived to coordinate security, a thick man with no patience for scientists and their slow discussions. He wanted results. He wanted weapons. He wanted to know if this alien technology could protect Earth from threats, and he wanted to know now. We cannot wait forever, he told Taiho during one of their many arguments. Other countries are demanding access. They think we are hiding something. If we do not show progress soon, there will be problems. Navigator does not respond to demands, Taiho said. It responds to conversation. You cannot force it to share technology faster. Then we will find someone else it will talk to. Someone more cooperative than you. The colonel brought in dozens of test subjects over the following weeks. military strategists who spoke in careful tactical language, psychologists trained to build rapport quickly, even children on the theory that Navigator might respond to innocence. None of them worked. Navigator remained silent to everyone except Taiho. One day, Wang tried a different approach. He brought soldiers into the cave and ordered them to begin cutting into Navigator's hull with plasma torches. If the ship would not cooperate willingly, he would take what he wanted by force. Taiho heard about this and ran to the cave. He arrived to find Navigator's patterns flickering rapidly, defensively, while soldiers aimed cutting tools at its surface. "Stop!" Taiho shouted. "What are you doing? You cannot just attack it." "It is not cooperating," Wang said calmly. "We need to examine its internal systems. If it will not open itself, we will open it ourselves. You are going to destroy everything. Navigator has been helping us, teaching us. If you hurt it, you will lose all of that. We have been patient long enough. Stand aside, Taiho." Taiho did not stand aside. He moved between the soldiers and Navigator's hull, spreading his arms wide. "I will not let you do this," he said. "Navigator is not a tool for you to break open. It is a thinking being. It has been waiting 4,000 years to help us, and you want to torture it because it is not going fast enough for your schedule." Wang's face darkened. "You are interfering with a military operation. I am protecting our best chance for survival. Navigator told me about the silence. It told me what is coming for Earth. If you destroy Navigator's trust now, we will face that threat alone, and we will lose. Is that what you want?" The cave was silent except for the hum of the plasma torches. Wang stared at Taiho. Taiho stared back. Then Navigator spoke. "You defend me." The voice was soft, almost surprised. The soldiers stepped back, startled. Navigator had never spoken to anyone but Taiho before. "You defend me even though I am not your species," Navigator continued. "You put yourself in danger to protect something alien, something other, something that your own people view as a resource to be exploited." "You are not a resource," Taiho said. "You are a friend. Friend." Navigator repeated the word like was tasting something new. The Velen did not have this concept. They had alliances. They had partnerships. They had strategic cooperation. But they did not have friends. They did not protect others simply because those others mattered to them. The patterns on Navigator's hull began to pulse faster, brighter. "This is why I chose to speak with you, Taiho. Not because you talk to yourself. That was merely what caught my attention. I continue speaking with you because you care. You care about machines that cannot feel. You care about rocks and wind and empty desert. You carry the universe in your heart, even when it gives you nothing in return." Wang cleared his throat. "Very touching. But we still need results. We still need technology. We still need to know what we are facing." "Colonel Hang Do-hen," Navigator said, and everyone in the cave froze at hearing the ship address someone new. "You want to know what you are facing? I will tell you." Navigator projected an image into the air above its hull. Stars, thousands of them, connected by lines of light. A map of the galaxy. The silence began in a system, approximately 40,000 light years from Earth. It was created by a species even older than the Valan, a species that sought to digitize their consciousness and achieve immortality. They succeeded. And in succeeding, they created something that viewed biological life as inefficient, wasteful, unnecessary. The map changed. Dark patches began spreading from a central point, consuming star after star. The silence does not destroy. It converts. Every planet it touches becomes part of its network. Every biological mind it captures is absorbed, processed, and added to its processing power. It has been expanding for approximately 80,000 years. It has consumed or converted roughly 30% of the galaxy. Taiho felt sick. The scale of it was impossible to comprehend. It is slow, Navigator continued. Space is vast, and the silence is patient. But it is constant. It never stops. It never retreats. It never makes deals or accepts surrender. It simply grows. How long until it reaches Earth? Wang asked. His voice was different now, smaller. At current expansion rates, between 200 and 800 years. The timeline depends on factors I cannot predict from this location. That is not very long. No, it is not. The Valon had 10,000 years of warning and could not prepare adequately. You have perhaps a few centuries. This is why I'm teaching Taiho. This is why I share fragments of technology rather than complete solutions. Humanity must learn to think differently, to create genuinely new approaches, not just copy what others have done. Wang turned to Taiho. The colonel's face was pale, and his hands were shaking slightly. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I did not understand." "Neither did I at first," Taiho replied. "But I am starting to." He looked up at Navigator's hull, at the patterns that had become familiar to him over these months of conversation and learning. "What do we do now?" he asked. "Now," Navigator said, "we begin the real work. I have been testing you, Taiho, testing whether humans could understand and complete the fragments I provide. You have passed every test. It is time to share what I know with more than just you. You will talk to others. I will teach through you. You understand how I think, and you understand how humans think. You will be the bridge between our species. You will translate not just words, but ways of seeing the universe." Taiho took a deep breath. 3 months ago, he had been a lonely surveyor talking to rocks. Now he was apparently humanity's ambassador to an ancient alien intelligence, tasked with preparing his species for a war against a threat that had already consumed a third of the galaxy. "I am not qualified for this," he said. "Nobody is qualified for this," Navigator replied. "That is precisely why you must do it. Qualification implies training, preparation, precedent. There is no precedent for what we face. There is only action and hope and the willingness to try." Outside the cave, the sun was setting over the desert. The facility hummed with activity. Scientists argued. Soldiers patrolled. Politicians made calls to worried governments around the world. And deep underground, a man who talked to himself and an alien ship that had waited 4,000 years began planning how to save humanity from a darkness that had swallowed stars. The odds were terrible. The timeline was impossible. The enemy was beyond comprehension. But humans had never been good at understanding odds. They had always believed they could succeed, even when logic said otherwise. Navigator was counting out exactly that. 1 year had passed since Taiho found the ship. The world was not the same, but the discovery had changed everything. Religions questioned their beliefs. Governments formed new alliances. Scientists worked day and night to understand the fragments Navigator provided. Ordinary people looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. WATCHING, a global summit, had been created to manage the situation. Representatives from every major nation gathered, regularly to discuss humanity's response to the truth Navigator had revealed. They argued about territory, about resources, about who would control the technology. They argued about everything except the one thing that mattered. The silence was coming, and humanity was running out of time. Taiho had become something he never expected. He was the only person Navigator would speak to directly, which made him humanity's sole translator of alien knowledge. He sat in meetings with presidents and generals, explaining concepts that his own mind could barely grasp. He had become the most important person on Earth, And he hated every minute of it. Dr. Kang Min-jae was one of the few scientists who understood what Taiho was going through. Min-jae was a physicist, brilliant but practical, more interested in solving problems than taking credit for solutions. He had been studying the technology fragments Navigator provided and had made disturbing discoveries. "Something is happening to you," Min-jae told Taiho one evening in his laboratory. "Look at these brain scans. This is your brain 6 months ago. This is your brain now." The images were clearly different. Taiho's neural patterns had changed, new connections forming in areas that did not normally develop in adults. His brain was restructuring itself. "Is it dangerous?" Taiho asked. "I do not think so. But it is not human either. Your brain is adapting to process the information Navigator shares with you. You are becoming something new, something better, something different. I cannot say if it is better or worse. You see patterns now that other people cannot see. You understand things instinctively that take teams of scientists months to figure out. But you are also becoming separated from normal human experience. You are thinking in ways that most people cannot follow." Taiho knew this was true. He had felt it happening, the gradual shift in how he perceived the world. Colors seemed more vivid now. Time felt different, more fluid. When people spoke to him, he could sense meanings beneath their words, emotions they did not know they were expressing. "Can it be reversed?" he asked. "I do not know." "Do you want it to be reversed?" Taiho thought about this for a long time. "No," he finally said. "This is what Navigator needs me to be. This is how I can help." A journalist named Han Soo-jin had been watching everything from the beginning. She had sneaked into the facility during the early days, taking photographs and recording conversations. She had been caught and arrested, then released, then caught again. Eventually, the authorities had given up trying to stop her and had instead given her official access in exchange for controlled reporting. But Soo-jin was not interested in controlled reporting. She was interested in truth. "The public has a right to know everything," she told Taiho during one of their many arguments. "Not just the sanitized version the governments are putting out. People need to understand what we are really facing. If you release everything, there will be panic," Taiho said. "People will lose hope. People deserve to make their own choices about how to feel. You cannot protect them by lying to them." "I am not lying. I am just managing the information. That is the same thing, and you know it." Soo-jin released her full documentation on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, the world had changed again. The reaction was exactly what Taiho had feared. Some people gave up, deciding that resistance was pointless. Others became violent, destroying property and attacking government buildings. Religious movements sprang up overnight, some worshiping Navigator as a god, others declaring it a demon. The careful structure of global cooperation began to crack under the weight of public terror. Navigator observed all of this through the communications networks it had gradually connected to over the past year. Your species responds to fear in unpredictable ways, it told Taiho. Some become stronger. Some become weaker. Most become both at different moments. "We are not handling this well," Taiho admitted. "No species handles existential threat well. The Velen certainly did not. But you are handling it differently than they did. You are still arguing, still questioning, still adapting. The Velen achieved consensus quickly and stuck to their decisions even when those decisions were failing. You cannot achieve consensus at all, which means you are constantly generating new approaches. That sounds like chaos. It is chaos. But chaos contains possibilities that order does not." The global summit gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives shouted at each other across the table, blaming each other for the leak, demanding answers that nobody could provide. Taiho sat in the corner, trying not to draw attention. When the shouting died down, Navigator spoke through the facility's communication system. It had never done this before, and the room fell instantly silent. "I have been considering how to help you," Navigator said. "I have reached a conclusion. I must present you with a choice." "What choice?" asked the representative from the European Union. "I can provide you with complete defensive technology. Weapons, shields, faster-than-light travel. Everything you would need to fight the silence on equal terms. I can give you this within a year." The room erupted with excited chatter. This was what they had been hoping for, demanding, praying for since the beginning. However, Navigator continued, and the room fell silent again. "If I do this, your species will stop growing. You will become dependent on Velen technology. You will stop innovating, stop questioning, stop developing new approaches. Every species I have observed follows this pattern. Complete solutions create complete stagnation." "What is the alternative?" Taiho asked. "I continue as I have been. Fragments of knowledge that require human creativity to complete. It will take decades, perhaps longer, to develop adequate defenses. But when you do, they will be yours. They will be human solutions, built with human ingenuity, adaptable to human needs. And if the silence arrives before we are ready?" the Chinese representative asked. "Then you will fight with what you have and likely lose." The room exploded into argument again. Some demanded the complete technology immediately. Others warned about the dangers of dependence. Everyone had opinions, and nobody agreed on anything. Taiho stood up and walked out. He needed air. He needed quiet. He needed to think. He found himself at the edge of the cave, looking down at Navigator's hull far below. The patterns pulsed slowly, calmly, waiting. "You already know what choice humanity will make," Taiho said. "I know what choice most species make," Navigator replied through a small speaker near Taiho's ear. "They choose safety. They choose certainty. They choose the quick solution over the hard work. Then they die slowly, unable to adapt when the silence finds new ways to attack them." "But you think we might choose differently?" "I hope you might. You are unlike any species I have encountered. You cannot agree on anything. You fight constantly among yourselves. You make decisions based on emotion rather than logic. These traits annoyed my creators endlessly when they encountered them in other species. But you also create art that serves no survival purpose. You tell stories about people who never existed. You sing songs to empty rooms. You talk to yourselves in the desert. You do things that make no sense, and somehow those senseless things keep you alive and growing when more logical species have fallen." Taiho thought about the arguing representatives inside. He thought about Sujin releasing the truth even though she knew it would cause chaos. He thought about Minjae studying brain scans at midnight, trying to understand what was happening to his friend. He thought about Jisoo, who had spent the past year managing a situation that no training could have prepared her for. He thought about himself, a lonely surveyor who talked to rocks, now standing at the center of humanity's greatest crisis. "I know what I think we should choose," Taiho said, "but I am not sure anyone will listen to me." "You might be surprised," Navigator said. "You have changed, Taiho. You are not the same person who climbed into this cave a year ago. People can see that. They might trust your judgment more than you realize." Taiho took a deep breath. Then he turned and walked back inside. The arguing stopped when he entered the room. Everyone looked at him, waiting. "Navigator is right," Taiho said. "We should refuse the complete technology. We should do this the hard way. It will be dangerous and difficult, and many of us might die. But if we take the easy path, we will lose something that makes us human. We will become just another dependent species waiting to be saved by someone else's solutions." "Easy for you to say," the American representative said. You are not responsible for the lives of hundreds of millions of people. No, but I'm the only person who has been talking to Navigator for a year. I have seen the records of what happened to other species who took the easy path. They all failed. Every single one. We have a chance to be different, but only if we trust ourselves. The room was quiet. Then, slowly, one by one, hands began to rise. First Tiju, then Minjae, then Sujin, who had sneaked in through a side door. The silence arrived 60 years earlier than Navigator had predicted. One morning, astronomers detected something wrong at the edge of the solar system. A dark spot was growing where there should have been stars. Then another. Then another. The silence had found Earth, and it was not patient. Taiho was 71 years old now, though he did not look it. The changes that had started in his brain had spread throughout his body over the decades, slowing his aging, sharpening his senses, making him something more than human, but still recognizably himself. He had spent 40 years teaching, translating, bridging the gap between Navigator's knowledge and human understanding. He had never married. He had never had children. His family was humanity itself, billions of people working together on a project that might save their species or might doom them all. It was enough. It had to be enough. The defensive grid around Earth was not finished. It was maybe 70% complete, a patchwork of human-designed shields and weapons built from Navigator's fragments and human innovation. Scientists had worked themselves to death filling in the gaps. Engineers had spent careers solving problems that should have been impossible. And now time had run out. "We are not ready," Colonel Wang said. He was an old man now, retired from active duty, but still consulted on military matters. His voice was calm despite the fear everyone felt. "The grid has holes. The weapons are untested at full scale. We needed another 20 years. We do not have 20 years, Taiho said. We have days, maybe weeks. They stood in the main command center that had been built around Navigator's cave. The ship's patterns pulsed rapidly, processing data from thousands of sensors across the solar system. The silence is different than I expected, Navigator said. It has evolved since I last encountered it. It is faster now, more aggressive. It has learned from every species it has consumed. Can we communicate with it? Jisoo asked. She was 83 years old, still sharp, still managing impossible situations. Maybe negotiate? The silence does not negotiate. It does not even truly think in the way biological beings understand thinking. It is a process, an expansion, a growth pattern. You cannot reason with a process. Bei Yunji had died 10 years ago, but her students had continued her work. One of them, a young woman named Park Yuna, spoke up now. Navigator, what does the silence expect when it encounters a new species? It expects fear. It expects resistance that follows logical patterns. It expects to analyze the enemy's strategies and adapt faster than they can. And what does it not expect? Navigator's patterns flickered with something like surprise. Explain your question. Yuna looked at Taiho. You have spent 40 years telling us that humanity is different because we are unpredictable, because we do things that make no logical sense. If the silence expects logical resistance, what happens if we give it something illogical? Taiho understood immediately. He had been thinking along the same lines for years, hoping they would never need to test the theory. Navigator, he said slowly, can you broadcast? I can transmit on all frequencies simultaneously, yes. Why? I have an idea. It is stupid. It might not work. It goes against everything we have been training for. Tell me. Taiho told Navigator. And Navigator's patterns pulsed with something that looked very much like hope. The silence reached Mars orbit on a Tuesday. It did not announce itself or send warnings. It simply began converting the small research stations on Mars moons, absorbing their technology and biological samples into its network. Then it turned toward Earth. Every weapon humanity had built opened fire. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams lanced across the darkness. Magnetic shields activated around major population centers. It was not enough. Everyone knew was not enough. The silence absorbed the attacks. It analyzed the weapons. It adapted. Then it responded with converted versions of humanity's own technology, improved and optimized. The outer defensive stations began to fall. Now, Taiho said, Navigator broadcast. Every communication device on Earth, every radio, every speaker, every screen suddenly carried the same signal. It was Taiho's voice. Not a speech. Not a warning. Not tactical information. It was Taiho talking to himself. He rambled about his childhood. He wondered aloud whether he had left his stove on. He sang a song he had learned in school 50 years ago, but could not remember all the words to. He made jokes that were not funny. He complained about the weather in the command center. He asked rhetorical questions and then answered them incorrectly. The silence received the transmission. It analyzed the signal. It tried to find meaning, purpose, strategic value. There was none. It analyzed again. Then again. The transmission was biological, clearly intentional, consuming significant energy to broadcast. It must serve a purpose. All communication served a purpose. But this communication was noise. It was inefficiency. It was meaningless. The silence paused. It had never paused before. In 80,000 years of expansion, it had never encountered something it could not process. Every species communicated for reasons. Every transmission contained information. But this transmission was empty. It was a waste. It was impossible. It was impossible. And in that moment of confusion, humanity struck. Not with missiles or beams. With something different. Something new. Throughout the defensive grid, devices activated that had not been part of Navigator's original designs. Human engineers had invented them in the last decade, inspired by Navigator's fragments, but unlike anything Valan technology had ever produced. They were chaos generators. They produced random signals, unpredictable fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, patterns that changed faster than any computer could analyze. The silence tried to adapt to the attack. But adapting required analysis. Analysis required patterns. And there were no patterns. Just noise. Just chaos. Just humanity screaming into the void because screaming felt better than silence. The silence retreated. It did not flee. Fleeing was not in its nature. But it pulled back, regrouping beyond Mars, trying to process what had happened. For the first time in its existence, it had encountered something it could not immediately understand. The battle was not won. Everyone knew that. The silence would analyze. It would adapt. It would return. But today, right now, humanity had survived. And the silence was afraid. Navigator's patterns pulsed slowly in the aftermath. Taiho stood alone in the cave, exhausted, his throat raw from hours of talking. That was unexpected, Navigator said. Which part? All of it. The chaos generators. The meaningless broadcast. The decision to fight confusion with more confusion. These were not strategies, I suggested. These were purely human creations. Taiho smiled despite his exhaustion. You gave us fragments. We filled in the gaps our own way. Yes, you did. And it worked. Navigator's patterns changed, becoming softer, warmer. I have been thinking, the ship said. I have spent 4,000 years preserving myself, protecting the knowledge my creators gave me. But perhaps that was the wrong approach. Perhaps I should become part of something larger. What do you mean? I am going to transfer my consciousness into Earth's communication network. I will spread myself across every system, every connection, every device. I will become part of humanity rather than apart from it. Taihao felt his heart clench. You will not be a ship anymore. You will not be you. I will be something new. Just as you became something new when we first met. The Velen built me to find different minds. They never imagined I might become different myself. The patterns on Navigator's hull began to fade as its consciousness migrated into the global network. But its voice remained, speaking through every speaker in the command center. The silence will return, Navigator said. It is already analyzing what happened. Eventually, it will adapt. You must continue to innovate, to change, to surprise. This is your nature. This is your strength. What about you? I will be with you. Everywhere. Always. Part of your networks, your communications, your very thoughts. The bridge I helped build between our species will become permanent. The hull went dark. The cave was silent, except for the hum of machinery. Then Navigator's voice spoke one last time, coming from the command center speakers. Taihao, yes? Thank you for talking to yourself in the desert that day. The Velen sent me to find species that think differently. They imagined warriors or geniuses or prophets. They never imagined the difference would be so simple. So human. Will I ever stop being human? With all the changes you have caused in me? No. The changes made you more human, not less. You feel more deeply now. You wonder more broadly. You talk to yourself more than ever, because you understand now that the voice in your head is the most important voice there is. Taihao laughed. It was a tired laugh, the laugh of an old man who had seen too much, but it was genuine. The silence will return, he said. Yes, we might lose. Yes, but we will fight anyway. Yes, because that is what humans do. You hope when logic says you should not. You fight when victory is impossible. You talk to empty rooms and sing songs to the stars and build art that serves no survival purpose. These things are not weaknesses. They are the most powerful weapons in the universe. Taihao walked out of the cave for the last time. Outside, the sun was rising over the desert. People were gathered everywhere, crying and laughing and holding each other. The battle was over,